Hey, what's up, everybody? Today I'm reading the Rocket League terms of service, so you don't have to. Let's get into it. Terms of use: you must agree to these terms of use before using the Psionics services, including Psionics games. These terms of use consist of the terms, conditions, disclaimers, notices, and policies, collectively the terms that apply to your access and use of the websites of Psionics LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, Psionics, We, Our, and Us, and any and all games, products, and services and applications provided by Psionics on any platform, collectively the services. These terms constitute a binding contract between you and Psionics that provides for important rights and obligations. For clarity, these terms are an agreement between you and Psionics only, not between you and any of Psionics' licensors, including without limitation Microsoft, Sony, or any of their affiliates. These terms include the provisions in this document, as well as those in Psionics' privacy policy. The link. By accessing, browsing, and or using the services, you represent psionics that you've read, understood, and agreed to be bound by these terms and all applicable local, state, national, international laws and conventions, including without limitation all intellectual property laws. Psionics reserves the right, at its sole and absolute discretion, to deny any user access to any services without notice. If you violate any of the terms, Psionics may, at its option, give you a warning notice of violation or terminate your account immediately for violation of the terms. And if you do not agree to all these terms, you may not access or use the services. Note, these terms contain a binding arbitration and class action waiver provision in Section 17 that may affect your rights under these terms with respect to any dispute as defined below between you and Psionics. You have a right to opt out of binding arbitration and class action waiver provisions as described in Section 17. Number 2, eligibility to accept terms and use services. Restrictions. By your use of the services, you agree that you are either 18 years of age or older, or possess legal parental or guardian consent to use the services, and you are fully able to and competent to understand and accept these terms as a binding contract and to abide by all terms. If you are under 18, your parent or guardian agrees to these terms on your behalf and is responsible and liable for your compliance with the terms. You will only use the services for your own internal, personal, non commercial use, and not on behalf of or for the benefit of any third party, and only in a manner that complies with all laws that apply to you. Number 3, Psionics' right to modify terms. We are constantly trying to improve our services, so these terms may need to change along with the services. Psionics may modify these terms at any time, with or without notice to you. By posting the modified terms on our websites, your continued use of the services after such modification shall be deemed to be your acceptance of any such modification. Any such modification will only apply to matters and events that occur following the date of modification. You may not modify these terms without the prior written authorization of an officer of psionics. It is your responsibility to check these terms regularly to determine whether they have been modified. If you do not agree to any modification of these services, you must immediately cease use of the services. Number 4, privacy and policy. These terms include the privacy policy relating to the collection, use, and disclosure of your information. Please read this privacy policy. Please read the privacy policy carefully. Number 5, Psionics' ownership of the services and proprietary materials. Services contain copyrighted material, technology, trademarks, service marks, trade secrets, and other proprietary information, which may include computer code, text, data, video, images, illustrations, animations, sounds, musical compositions, and recordings, audiovisual effects, color schemes, business methods, and methods of operation, concepts, ideas, know how, moral rights, and any related documentation, collectively the proprietary material. All intellectual property rights are to the proprietary material, including without limitation, patent, copyright, trademark, and trade secret rights, are owned or licensed by Psionics. You agree to not copy, download, reproduce, republish, upload, post, transmit, perform, display, distribute, or sell, or in any other way exploit the proprietary material, or to participate with or to encourage others and to engage in such acts without the prior written consent of psionics, and may not reverse engineer, disassemble, decompile, or translate any of the computer software programs that comprise proprietary material, or otherwise attempt to derive the source code of such programs, except that the foregoing restrictions on copying or reverse engineering does not apply to to the extent prohibited by the applicable law. No proprietary material of or any portion thereof may be modified or used for any purpose other than as expressly authorized in these terms. The proprietary material may include materials licensed by Psionics from third parties, and the licensors of those materials may enforce their rights in the event of any violation of this agreement. All rights not expressly granted to you in this agreement are reserved by Psionics and its licensors or suppliers. Number 6. Ownership of ideas, inventions, and user submissions, including user-generated content. The services provide you with access to a variety of resources, materials, and downloads, and may allow you to access content made available by other users of the services. Such content may include, without limitation, game levels, content creation tools, audio, video, film, music, text, communication, software, graphics, images, and information. All such content made available by you or by other users of the services referred to in this agreement as user-generated content. As between Psionics and you own the copyright in any user-generated content that is exclusively created by you. You expressly not acknowledge and agree that any user-generated content that you make available through the services may be made freely available by Psionics to others, including and without limitation for download by others. You further acknowledge and agree that this permission is made and granted by you in consideration of your use of the services, and that this permission constitutes and hereby grant a worldwide, non-exclusive, perpetual, royalty-free, irrevocable, and transferable license to Psionics to use, copy, perform, display, and distribute such user-generated content, and to grant authorized sub-licenses of such user-generated content to others. From time to time, you may disclose, submit, or offer to Psionics comments, feedback, submissions, gameplay, features, level designs, and other submissions. You hereby grant a worldwide, non-exclusive, perpetual, royalty-free, irrevocable, and transferable license for Psionics to use, copy, perform, and display and distribute such user ideas, and to grant and authorize sub-licenses of such user ideas to others. Unless otherwise prohibited by law, Psionics may use, sell, exploit, or create derivative works from these user ideas, and further, Psionics may disclose their user ideas to third parties or the general public without compensation to you. You acknowledge that user ideas and user-generated content are provided by you on a completely voluntary basis. Should you not wish to have your user ideas and user-generated content subject to the licenses set forth above, you may choose not to share them with Psionics on the services. 7. End-user license. All Psionics software is licensed, not sold. Such software includes the Psionics game software that Psionics provides to you for your download and installation games. Subject to your compliance with these terms, Psionics hereby grants you a non-exclusive, non-transferable, limited, and revocable right and license to install and use one copy of each game solely and exclusively for your personal and non-commercial use for gameplay on a single game system, e.g., computer, mobile device, or gaming console that you own or control of. If you obtain the game through the PlayStation Network (PSN), then on a system to which the game is delivered by the PSN. For clarity, the foregoing does not prohibit you from installing and using an additional copy of each game on a different game system. These terms shall also apply to any patches or updates that you may obtain from the games. Duplication, copying, or any form of reproduction of the games or related information, materials, or any other content to any other server or location for the purposes of duplication, copying, or any other form of reproduction is, to the fullest extent permissible by law, expressly and explicitly prohibited. Your use of any of the games is governed by Psionics' end-user license agreement. Number 8. Prohibited user conduct. You are solely responsible and liable for any user-generated content that you upload, post, input, publish, or otherwise distribute using the services. As a condition of your use of the services, you agree to not use the services for any unlawful or prohibited purpose. You further represent, warrant, and agree that you will not, under any circumstances, contribute any user-generated content or otherwise use the services or interact with the services in a manner that a. constitutes or includes any illegal, unauthorized copy, in whole or in part, of another person's copyrighted or copyrightable work, discloses trade secrets without authorization, or otherwise violates the proprietary rights of third party or Psionics. B. Misrepresents the source of or identity of any material. C. Is unlawful, vulgar, obscene, defamatory, libelous, threatening, abusive, harassing, harmful, toxic, quote, or promotes racism, bigotry, hatred, or physical harm of any kind that is against individual group in any individual or group, or encourages any other conduct that would be considered a criminal offense, creates civil liability, or is otherwise offensive or inappropriate or objectionable. D. Violates the rights of privacy or publicity of any person. E. Is false or deceptive. V. Deceptive. F. Displays pornographic or sexually explicit material of any kind. G. Includes material that exploits people in a sexual or violent manner. H. Posts, uploads, transmits, or streams any unauthorized or unsolicited material that disrupts the normal flow of chat or other activities in the services, including spam, junk mail, excessive mail, or chain letters. I. Is an advertisement or solicitation to sell a product or service to users of the services, or constitutes any other commercial use of the services without the prior written consent of psionics. J. Is unlawful under the laws of the United States or any individual state or locality, the laws of any foreign or local jurisdiction, or any international treaty or convention that is prohibited by any applicable government regulation. K. Interferes with the proper functioning of the services or violates any other of the terms. L. Sells, grants a security interest in, or transfers reproductions of all or any portion of the services to other parties in any way not expressly authorized herein, or that rents, leases, or licenses all or any portion to the services of others. M. Exploits the services of, or any of its parts for any commercial purpose whatsoever without the express prior written authorization of psionics. N. Hosts, provides, or develops services for or using the services, or intercepts, emulates, disrupts, or redirects the communication protocols, hardware, software, network, or system used by psionics in any way, including without limitation through protocol emulation, tunneling, packet sniffing, modifying, or adding components to the services, use of a utility program, or any other techniques that now know or hereafter developed for any purpose, including without limitation, unauthorized access in any form over the internet. O. Facilitates, creates, or maintains any unauthorized connection to the services or any portion thereof, including without limitation any connection to any unauthorized server that emulates or attempts to emulate, hacks, or engineers the services. All connections to the services or any portion thereof may only be made through methods and means expressly approved by psionics. Under no circumstances may you connect or create tools that allow you or others to connect to the services or any portion thereof, other than those expressly provided by psionics. P. Develops or allows any viruses, malware, adware, spyware, Trojan horses, cancel bots, or any other automated bots, quote, autoplayers, quote, cheat utilities, spoofers, keyloggers, or any circumvention devices to be present on any machine used to access the services and or to attempts to upload/utilize such devices against the services. Q. Is related to any games of chance, gambling, sweepstakes, lotteries, contests, surveys, chain letters, pyramid schemes, or other similar services, whether or not they are used for commercial gain. R. Collects, harvests, scrapes, or captures any other user's information, email addresses, or other personal data of any other users to send unsolicited emails or any other communication, whether or not this is done for commercial gain. S. Makes false reports of user abuse of psionics or affiliated companies and partners. T. Impersonates any person, including an employee of psionics or any third party. Or U. Attempts in any manner to obtain the password, account, or other security information of any other user. You should not post any user-generated content if you are in doubt about its legality or prohibition by terms. You acknowledge that psionics is a service provider that may allow its users to interact online regarding topics and content self-chosen by the users. Psionics does not endorse any user-generated content or any opinion, recommendation, or advice that may be expressed. Psionics shall have no obligation to monitor any user-generated content. Nonetheless, psionics and its agents shall have and reserve the right to monitor any user-generated content from time to time for any lawful purpose. Psionics may, without notice to you, remove or block any user-generated content, including disabling access to such user-generated content. Psionics may also terminate your access to the services and refer to the user-generated consent to law enforcement if it is in violation of any federal, state, or local law or regulation. Psionics expressly reserves the right to monitor any and all network traffic between the users and the services to prevent the use of said means to compromise the services. Psionics, within sole discretion, expressly reserves the right to ban you from or limit your access to the services temporarily or permanently for failure to comply with the restrictions and limitations contained in these terms, including without limitation in this Section 8. And such failure to comply may subject you to civil and or criminal liability. For more information about our content moderation practices, please visit our Safety and Security Center. Number 9. User registration and account security. As a condition to using certain components of the services, you may be required to register with the Psionics and select a password and or screen name, user ID, to obtain a personal account on any particular game system or platform. In addition, Psionics may automatically assign you to a user ID in each such game system or platform to identify you to our servers. If you are required to enter registration information, you agree to provide Psionics with accurate, complete, updated registration information. Failure to do so shall contribute a breach of the terms, which may result in immediate automatic termination of all your access to the services. You may not select or use as a user ID a name of another person with the intent to impersonate that person. Use as a user ID a name subject to the rights, including trademarks and or copyrights, of a person other than you without appropriate authorization, or use as a user ID a name that is otherwise offensive, vulgar, or obscene. Psionics reserves the right to refuse registration of or to cancel a user ID in its sole and absolute discretion. Notwithstanding the foregoing, you acknowledge that Psionics cannot guarantee the accuracy of any information submitted by the user of the services. Notwithstanding the foregoing, you acknowledge that Psionics cannot guarantee the accuracy of any information submitted by any user of the services, nor any identifying information about any user. You are solely responsible for the activity that occurs through your account. You shall be solely responsible for maintaining the confidentiality of your password. You may not share your account with a third party or use the account of a third party. You agree to notify Psionics immediately in writing any unauthorized use of your account or other account-related security breach of which you are aware. You may cancel your account at any time upon written notice to Psionics. 10. Virtual currency and virtual goods. If a game allows you to purchase and or earn through play a license to use virtual currency and virtual goods as defined below, the following additional terms and conditions apply. The games may enable users to 1. Use functional virtual currency as a medium of exchange exclusively within such a game, virtual currency or VC. 2. Gain access to and certain limited rights to use virtual goods within the game, virtual goods or VG. And 3. Barter or exchange VC and VG with other users of the game. Regardless of the terminology used, VC and VG represent a limited, non-licensed right governed by these terms. Subject to these terms and of compliance with these terms, Psionics hereby grants you the non-exclusive, non-transferable, non-sublicensable, limited and revocable right, and license to use VC and VG obtained by you for your personal, non-commercial gameplay exclusively within the games, except as otherwise prohibited by applicable law. VC and VG obtained by you are licensed to you, and you hereby acknowledge that no title or ownership in or to VC and VG is being transferred or assigned hereunder. These terms should not be construed as a sale of any rights in VC and VG. VC and VG do not have an equivalent value in real currency and do not act as a substitute for real currency. You are prohibited from converting VC and VG into a unit of value outside the games, such as actual currency or actual goods. You acknowledge that and agree that Psionics may revise or take action that impacts the perceived value of or purchase price for any VC and or VG at any time except as prohibited by applicable law. VC and VG do not incur fees for non-use, provided, however, that the license granted hereunder to VC and VG will terminate in accordance with the terms and conditions of these terms and games documentation when Psionics ceases providing the services or these terms are otherwise terminated. Psionics, in its sole discretion, reserves the right to charge fees for the right to access or use VC and VG and or may distribute VC or VG with or without charge. 1. You may have the ability to purchase VC or to earn VC from Psyonix for the completion of certain activities or accomplishments in the games. For example, Psyonix may be able to provide VC or VG upon the completion of an in-game activity, such as attaining a new level, completing a task, or creating user content. Once obtained, VC and or VG will be credited to your user account. You may purchase VC and VG only within the games or through a platform participating third-party online store, application store, or other store authorized by Psyonix, all referred to herein as software store. Purchase and use of in-game items or currency through a software store are subject to the software store's governing documents, including but not limited to these terms. This online service is sub-licensed to you by the software store. Psyonix may offer discounts or promotions on the purchase of VC, and such discounts and promotions may be modified or discontinued by Psyonix at any time without notice to you. Upon completing an authorized purchase of VC from a software store, the amount of purchased VC will be credited to your user account. Psyonix shall establish a maximum amount you may spend to purchase VC per transaction and or per day, which may vary depending on the associated software. Psyonix, in its sole discretion, may impose additional limits on the amount of VC you may purchase or use, how you may use VC, and the maximum balance of VC that may be credited to your user account. You are solely responsible for all VC purchases made through your user account, regardless of whether or not authorized by you. 1. You can access and view your available VC and VG in your user account when logged into your user account. Psyonix reserves the right, in its sole discretion, to make all calculations regarding the available VC and VG in your user account. Psyonix further reserves the right, in its sole discretion, to determine the amount of and manner in which VC is credited and debited from your user account in connection with your purchase of VG or for other purposes. While Psyonix strives to make all such calculations on a consistent and reasonable basis, you hereby acknowledge and agree that Psyonix's determination of the available VC and VG in your user account is final, unless you can provide documentation to Psyonix that such calculation was or is intentionally incorrect. All purchased in-game virtual currency and or virtual goods may be consumed or lost by players in the course of gameplay according to the game rules applicable to currency and goods, which may vary depending on the associated game. VC and VG may only be used within the games, and Psyonix, within its sole discretion, may limit the use of VC and or VG to a single game. The authorized uses and purposes of VC and VG may change at a time. Your available VC and or VG as shown in your user account will be reduced each time you use VC and or VG within the games. The use of any VC and or VG constitutes demand against and withdrawal from your available VC and or VG in your user account. You must have sufficient available VC and or VG in your user account in order to complete a transaction within the games. VC and or VG in your user account may be reduced without notice upon the occurrence of certain events related to your use of your games. You are responsible for all uses of VC and or VG made through your user account, regardless of whether or not authorized by you. You must notify Psyonix immediately upon discovering the unauthorized use of any VC and or VG made through your user account by submitting a request to support.rocketleague.com. VC and VG. 1. VC and VG may only be redeemed for in-game goods and services. You may not sell, lease, license, or rent VC and VG. VC and VG may only be redeemed for in-game goods or services that are not redeemable for any sum of money or monetary value or other goods from Psyonix or any other person or entity at any time, except as expressly provided herein or otherwise required by applicable law. Dude, I'm gonna die. My head hurts so bad right now. VC and VG have no cash value, and neither Psyonix nor any other person or entity has any obligation to exchange your VC or VG for anything of value, including but not limited to real currency. All purchases of VC and VG are final, and such purchases will not be refundable, transferable, or exchangeable, except as required by law, except as prohibited by applicable law. Psyonix has the absolute right to manage, regulate, control, modify, suspend, and or eliminate such VC and or VG as it sees fit in its sole discretion, and psionics shall have no liability to you or anyone else in the exercise of such rights. Rights. 1. Any transferring, trading, selling, or exchanging of VC and VG to anyone other than in-game play using the games expressly authorized by psionics, unauthorized transactions, including, but not limited to, among other users of the services, is not sanctioned by psionics and is strictly forbidden. Psionics reserves the right in its sole discretion to terminate, suspend, or modify your user account in your VC and VG and terminate these terms if you engage in, assist in, or request any unauthorized transactions. All users who participate in such activities do so at their own risk and hereby agree to indemnify and hold harmless psionics, its partners, licensors, affiliates, contractors, officers, directors, employees, and agents from all damages. Harmless psionics. Losses and expenses arising directly or indirectly from such actions. You authorize that psionics may request from the applicable software source suspend, terminate, discontinue, or reverse any unauthorized transaction, regardless of when such unauthorized transaction occurred or has yet to occur. When it suspects or has evidence of fraud, violations of these terms, violations of any applicable law, regulation, or any intentional act designed to interfere that otherwise has the effect or may have the effect of intervening in any way with the operation of the services. If psionics believes or has any reason to suspect that you have engaged in unauthorized transaction, you further agree that psionics may, in its sole discretion, restrict your access to your available VC and VG in your user account, or terminate or suspend your user account and your rights to any VC, VG, and other items associated with your user account. VC is only available to customers in certain locations. You may not purchase or use VC if you're not in an approved location. Promotional programs and tournaments. Psionics may implement marketing and promotional programs or tournaments in which users are offered benefits, considerations, or rewards based on the performance of specified activities, the satisfaction of specified requirements, or other criteria. So any such program, including the eligibility and selections of users, the award, compensation, or any other benefit to be granted users, if any, in the duration, shall be at the sole and absolute discretion of psionics. You acquire no right or interest to participate in such program or to the impartial implementation of the program and distribution of any awards, compensation, or benefits. You hereby expressly waive and disclaim any such right or interest. To the extent such program may involve one or more third parties and permitted by applicable law, you further expressly waive and disclaim any such right or interest against such third party. Psionics may elect in its sole and absolute discretion to contact you with regard to a program or tournament. You hereby expressly authorize psionics to contact you by means of the contact information you have provided to psionics. Additional terms and restrictions may apply to you if you choose to participate in the promotional programs or tournaments. Third-party websites and services. Solely as a convenience to use, psionics may provide links on the services to other websites owned by third parties. Further, the psionics services may be available to you through third-party websites, platforms, and or services. Unless otherwise expressly stated, psionics does not endorse or control these third parties or their offering and assumes no responsibility for them or the content contained therein. Use of the services outside the United States. The services are controlled and operated by psionics in the state of California, to the extent permissible by applicable local law and except as expressly set forth in these terms. Psionics makes no representations or warranties, either express or implied, that services and other materials available through the services are appropriate, legally permissible, or available to use in other locations. Whether or not you use the services inside of the United States of America, you agree to abide to any applicable export control laws and not to transfer by the electronic transmission or otherwise any user-generated content, software, or other materials subject to restrictions under such laws to a natural destination prohibited by such laws without first obtaining and then complying with any requisite government authorization. You further agree to not upload to the services any data or software that cannot be exported without prior written government authorization, including but not limited to certain types of encryption software. General disclaimers. To the fullest extent allowed by applicable law, the services and any accompanying documentation and material are being provided to you as is without warranty of any kind whatsoever. Without limiting the intended generality of the preceding sentence, neither Psionics nor its licensors or suppliers warrants the services or any portion thereof will be uninterrupted, secure, or error-free, or that defects will be corrected. 2. Is compatible with any software, including without limitation internet browser software. 3. Is free of infection by viruses, worms, Trojan horses, or anything else manifesting contaminating or destructive properties. Or 4. Is free of defamatory, derogatory, or adult-oriented material, or material that some individuals may deem offensive or objectionable. To the fullest extent allowed by law, Psionics disclaims all representations, terms, warranties, whether express or implied, including but not limited to any and all implied warranties of its merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose or use. Neither Psionics nor its licensors or suppliers is responsible for the conduct, whether online or offline, any loss or damage resulting from your use of the services, any user-generated content posted on the services, or transmitted to another user, or any transactions between among you and other users, whether online or offline. The services are controlled and provided by Psionics from its facilities in the United States of America to the extent permissible by the applicable local law and except as expressly set forth in these terms. Psionics makes no representation that the services are appropriate or available for use in any other locations. Because some jurisdictions prohibit the exclusion or limitation of liability for consequential and incidental damages, the above limitations may not apply to you to the extent that such exclusions and limitations are not permitted under local law. Limitation and liability to the fullest extent allowed by law. To the fullest extent allowed by applicable law, Psionics and its licensors, suppliers, officers, directors, shareholders, employees, and agents shall not be liable to you or any other person, whether under contract or otherwise, for any indirect, special, incidental, or consequential damages of any kind, or for lost profits, loss of goodwill, work stoppage, accuracy of result, or computer failure or malfunction, and or B, any amount in the aggregate in the excess of the greater 1. $1,000 or 2, the amounts paid or payable to you by Psionics or a third-party platform that provided by you with any games in connection with the services in the 12-month period preceding this applicable claim. Or 3, any matter beyond Psionics' reasonable control. Psionics cannot and will not be responsible for any loss of your user-generated content or any interruptions of service, including but not limited to ISP disruptions, software or hardware failures, or any other event which may result in a loss of data or disruption of service. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary in these terms, nothing in these terms shall exclude or limit anything to which may not be excluded or limited under applicable law, including without limitation, death, or personal injury arising through the negligence or for fraud. 2. Indemnification. To the maximum extent permitted by law, you agree to defend, indemnify, and hold harmless Psionics, its officers, directors, employees, and agents from and against all claims, damages, obligations, losses, liabilities, costs, or debt, and expenses, including but not limited to attorney fees, arising from your use of services, your violation of any of the terms, your violation of any third-party right, including without limitation any copyright, trade secret, privacy, or property right, and or any claim that your user-generated content caused damage to a third party. 3. Binding individual arbitration. Please read the section carefully. It affects your rights, including the right to file a lawsuit in court. There is no judge and jury in arbitration, and discovery procedures and appellate rights are more than limited. The term dispute means any dispute, claim, or controversy between you and Psionics arising from or relating to the terms of services, whether based in contract, statute, regulation, ordinance, or including but not limited to fraud, misrepresentation, fraudulent inducement, or negligence, or any other legal and equitable theory, and includes the validity, enforceability, or scope of the Section 17, with the exception of the enforceability of the requirement that arbitration must be conducted on an individual rather than class basis. Term dispute is to be given the broadcast possible, meaning that will be enforced. If you have a dispute with Psionics or Psionics' officers, directors, employees, and agents that cannot be resolved through negotiation within the time frame described in the notice of dispute clause below, then you and Psionics agree to seek resolution of the dispute only as follows. 1. You are using or accessing the services outside of the European Union through binding arbitration of the dispute in accordance with the terms of the Section 17. Binding arbitration means that this dispute will be resolved by a neutral arbitrator instead of in a court by a judge or jury. 1. Again, if and only if you are using or accessing the services in the European Union pursuant to the terms of Section 20 below. Right to opt out of binding arbitration and class action waiver within 30 days. Do not wish to be bound by the binding arbitration and class action waiver in the Section 17, you must notify Psionics in writing within 30 days after the date is that you first accept these terms, unless a longer period is required by applicable law. Your written notification must be either A. Sent via email to legal@psionics.com or B. Mailed to Psionics LLC at 401 W. A Street, Suite 2400, San Diego, California, 92101-7909, USA, ATTN, legal/arbitration. In either case, you must include 1. Your name, 2. Your address, and 3. A clear statement that you do not wish to resolve disputes with Psionics through binding arbitration. Notice of dispute/informal resolution. If you have a dispute with Psionics, you must send written notice by A. Sending an email to through negotiation. You agree to negotiate resolution of the dispute in good faith in no less than 60 days after you provide notice of the dispute. The notice of dispute sent by either party must include the sender's name, address, and other contact information, a description of the dispute, including any relevant account names, and what resolution to the dispute is being sought. All applicable statutes of limitations will be considered told beginning on day 1 of us sends a compliant notice of dispute to the other. You or Psionics cannot proceed to arbitration without having first sent a compliant notice of dispute and completing the informal resolution period. In the event of disagreements over whether a compliant notice of dispute was sent or an arbitration was filed without completing this informal resolution process, the party aggrieved by this failure can seek relief from a court with appropriate jurisdiction to enjoin the arbitration from proceeding until this informal resolution has been completed, and to order the party that has not been followed the informal resolution process to reimburse the other party for any arbitration fees that has already been incurred. If Psionics does not resolve your dispute within 60 days from receipt of a compliant notice of this dispute, you or Psionics may pursue your claim in arbitration pursuant to the terms of Section 17. In this Section 17, coordinated fillings. If 25 or more notices of disputes are sent that raise similar claims or have the same coordinated counsel, these will be considered coordinated cases and will be treated as mass filings or multiple case fillings according to the rules. And if and to the extent coordinated cases are sought to be filed in arbitration as set forth in this agreement, Psionics or you may advise to the other in your belief as cases in coordinated cases and disputes whether a case or cases meet the contractual definition of coordinated cases will be decided by the arbitration provider as an administered matter. Demands for arbitration in coordinated cases shall only be filed with the arbitration power provider as permitted by the bellwether process set forth below. Claimants in coordinated cases will be responsible for the share of the NAM fees. Applicable statutes of limitations will be told for the claims of the coordinated case from the time a compliant notice of dispute has been received by a party until, under the terms of this agreement, the coordinated case is filed in arbitration for as provided for below in court. Once counsel in the coordinated cases has advised Psionics that all or substantially all notices of dispute have been provided for those cases, counsel for the party shall confer in good faith regarding the number of cases that should proceed in arbitration as bellwethers to allow each side a reasonable opportunity to test the merits of its arguments. If counsel for the parties do not agree on the number of bellwethers, then an even number shall be chosen by the arbitration provider as an administered matter or in the arbitration provider's discretion by a process arbitrator. Factors that the arbitration provider may consider in deciding how many bellwether trials to order include the complexity of the dispute and differences in facts and applicable laws among various cases. Once the number of bellwethers is fixed by agreement or by arbitration provider, each side shall select half the number among the claimants have been provided compliant notices of dispute until and only those chosen cases may be filed with the arbitration provider. No other cases may be filed until those bellwether matters have concluded, and psionics may not be required to pay any fees associated with arbitration demands other than those permitted to be filed as bellwethers. The parties acknowledge that resolution of coordinated cases not selected as bellwethers will be delayed in this bellwether process. Unless the parties agree otherwise, each bellwether trial should be assigned to a different arbitrator. Only bellwether trials will proceed in arbitration. Once all bellwether trials have concluded, or sooner if the counsel or for the claimants and psionics agree, the parties must engage in a simple mediation of all remaining coordinated cases, each side paying half the applicable mediation fee. Psionics and counsel for the claimants must agree on a mediator within 30 days after the conclusion of the last bellwether trial. If counsel for psionics and claimants cannot agree on a mediator within 30 days, the arbitration provider will appoint a mediator as an administrative matter. Psionics and counsel for the claimants will cooperate for the purpose of ensuring that the mediation is scheduled as quickly as practicable after the mediator is appointed. If the mediation does not yield a global resolution, its arbitration requirements shall no longer apply to disputes that are subject of the coordinated cases, for a compliant notice of dispute was received by other party but that were not resolved in bellwether proceedings. To the extent that you are asserting the same claims as other persons and are represented by common or coordinated counsel, you agree to waive any objection that the joinder of all such persons is impracticable. If a formally arbitrable dispute is brought in court, claimants may seek class treatment, but to the fullest extent allowed by applicable law, the classes shall only comprise only claimants of the coordinated cases who provided compliant notices of dispute. Any party may contest class certification at any stage of the litigation and on any available basis. A court with appropriate jurisdiction shall have authority to enforce this bellwether process and may enjoin the filing of lawsuits or arbitration demands not made in compliance with it. Class action/jury trial waiver to the maximum extent permitted by applicable law for any dispute not subject to the requirement of arbitrate. Except to the limited extent discussed above for coordinated cases, you and psionics must agree to only bring disputes, claims, or controversies between you and psionics that relates to any psionics product or psionics products generally, your use or attempted use of psionics product, or these terms in an individual capacity, and shall not seek to bring, join, or participate in any class or representative action, collect, or class-wide arbitration, or any other action where individual or entity acts in representative capacity, e.g., private attorney general actions, or consolidate and combine individual proceedings, or permit another to do so without the express consent of all parties. You and psionics further agree to waive the right to trial by jury. Initiation of arbitration proceedings / selection of arbitrator. If you or psionics elect to resolve your dispute through binding arbitration, the party initiating the arbitration proceeding may initiate it with national arbitration and mediation. Initiation of arbitration proceedings / selection of arbitrator. If you or psionics elect to resolve your dispute through binding arbitration, the party initiating the arbitration proceeding may initiate it with National Arbitration and Mediation (NAM) link, according to NAM's comprehensive dispute resolution rules and procedures in effect at the time the dispute arises. As modified by this agreement, instructions for filing a demand or arbitration with NAM are available on the NAM website or by emailing NAM at commercial@namadr.com. This agreement affects the interstate commerce, and the enforceability of the section will be substantially and procedurally governed by the U.S. Federal Arbitration Act (FAA) 9 U.S.C. S1 ET sequence and federal arbitration law. The terms of this section 17 govern in the event they conflict with the rules of the arbitration organization selected by the parties. Send a copy of any demand for arbitration to Epic Games Inc. Legal Department, ATTN Arbitration of Dispute, Box 254 2474 Walnut Street, Cary, North Carolina 27518, USA. Psionics will send any demand for arbitration to your registered email address and any billing address you have provided us. Arbitration procedures. Subject to these terms, any dispute shall be finally settled in English in accordance with the rules by one commercial arbitrator who shall be selected in accordance with the rules. Judgment upon the award rendered by such arbitrator may be entered in a court of competent jurisdiction. Notwithstanding the foregoing obligation to arbitrate disputes, each party shall have the right to pursue injunctive or other equitable relief at any time from any court of competent jurisdiction. Further, if your claims do not exceed $75,000 and you are provided notice to and negotiated in good faith with Psionics as described above, the arbitrator finds that you are the prevailing party in the arbitration, you will be entitled to recover reasonable attorney's fees and costs determined by the arbitrator, in addition to any rights and recover the same under controlling state or federal law accorded to Psionics. Arbitrator will make any award in writing, but need not provide a statement of reasons unless requested by a party. Such award will be binding and final, except for the right of appeal provided by the FAA, and may be entered in any court having jurisdiction over the parties or for purposes of enforcement. Location of arbitration. If an in-person hearing is required, the hearing will either take place in San Diego, California, or where you reside, you choose. Severability. Or if all or any provision in this section 17 is found to be illegal or unenforceable, then you and Psionics agree that the provision will be severed and the rest of the agreement shall remain in effect and be construed as if any severed provision has not been included. The sole exception is that if the prohibition on class arbitrations is found invalid, unenforceable, or illegal, you and Psionics agree that it will not be severable. This entire section 17, except for the class action waiver and jury tribal waiver provisions, will be void and unenforceable, and any dispute will be resolved in court. No under circumstances shall arbitration be conducted on a class basis without Psionics' express consent. Future arbitration changes. Although Psionics may revise these terms in its discretion, Psionics does not have the right to alter the terms of arbitration or the rules specified herein with respect to any dispute. Once that dispute arises, if such change would make arbitration procedures less favorable to the claimant, whether change procedures are less favorable to the claimant is an issue to be decided by the arbitrator, and if multiple claimants are proceeding in coordinated cases, the applicability of revised terms to the coordinated cases will be decided by the arbitration provider as a process matter for general provisions, subject to and the maximum extent permitted by the local law applicable in the country where you obtain or use a service. You agree that the services shall be deemed exclusively based on the state of California, USA, and these terms shall be deemed and have been made and executed exclusively in the state of California, USA. Any dispute arising out of these terms shall be resolved in accordance with the laws of the state of California. My dog. USA without reference to its conflict of law provisions or the United States Convention of Contracts of any international sale of goods. Subject to the provisions of Section 17, you agree that any claim asserted in any legal proceeding by you or Psionics in connection with these terms shall be commenced and maintained in any state or federal court located in San Diego County, California, USA, having subject matter jurisdiction with respect to such dispute. You and Psionics each agree to submit to the personal jurisdiction of each court. The prevailing party in such proceedings shall be entitled to the reimbursement of court costs, including the reasonable attorney's fees, in addition to any other remedy awarded. In the event of any provision of these terms shall be held by a court or other tribunal of competent jurisdiction being unenforceable, such provision will be enforced to the maximum extent permissible, and the remaining portions of these terms shall remain in full force and effect. You may not transfer or assign any of your rights or obligations provided in these terms without the express prior written approval of Psionics. Psionics may assign these terms without restriction of any kind. No failure on the part of Psionics to enforce any provision of these terms shall be deemed without a waiver or consent. These terms to the privacy policy constitute and contain the entire agreement and understanding between you and Psionics with respect to the subject matter hereof and supersedes between any prior oral or written agreements or understanding. As between Psionics and its licensors, Psionics will be solely responsible for the services and support the services. You and Psionics acknowledge that following are intended third-party beneficiaries of these terms. 1. Sony Computer Entertainment Inc. 2. Sony Computer Entertainment America LLC. 3. Sony Computer Entertainment Europe Ltd. There are no other third-party beneficiaries of these terms. Provisions that by their nature should survive termination of these terms shall survive termination. By way of example, all the following survive termination. Sections 5, 6, 8, 12, and 14 through 20. 5. Digital Millennium Copyright Act notice. As an online service provider, Psyonix has adopted the following general policy of regarding copyright infringement in accord with the Digital Millennium Copyright Act 17, USC 512 DMCA. The address of the Psyonix designated agent to receive notification of claimed infringement. Designated agent is Copyright Designated Agent Psyonix LLC, 401 W A Street, Suite 2400, San Diego, California, 92101-7909, USA Legal at Psyonix.com. For any notice of infringement to be effective, the notice must include 1. A physical or electronic signature of a person authorized to act on behalf of the intellectual property owner of exclusive right that is allegedly infringed. 2. A description of the copyrighted work where you claim has been infringed upon. 3. A description of where the material that you claim is infringing is located on the services. 4. Information to permit Psyonix to contact the complaining party, including address, telephone number, and, if available, an email address at which the complaining party may be contacted. 5. A subject by the complaining party that you have good faith belief that the disputed use that is not authorized by the copyright owner, its agent, or the law. And F. For 6. A statement made under penalty or perjury that the information in the notification is accurate and that the complaining party is authorized to act on behalf of the owner in an exclusive right that is allegedly infringed. It is Psyonix's policy to block access or to remove content that believes in good faith to be copyrighted material that has been illegally copied and distributed by any other user or other content provider, and to remove and discontinue service or to repeat offenders. If you believe that a user-generated content or other material residing on or accessible through the services infringes copyright, please send a notice of copyright infringement to the designated agent. The notice of infringement should conform to the elements of notification listed above. Once proper infringement notification is received by the designated agent, Psyonix may remove or disable access to the claimed infringing user-generated content or other material. Notify the accused infringing party that it has removed or disabled access to the user-generated content or other material, and determine appropriate measures to prevent recurrence by the accused infringing party. If the accused infringing party believes that the right material was removed or to which access was disabled is not infringing, or she or he that they believe that they have the right to post and use such material from the copyright owner, the copyright owner's agent, or pursuant to the law, they may send us a counter notice containing the following information to the designated agent. 1. A physical or electronic signature of the accused infringing party. 2. Identification of the material that has been removed to which access has been disabled and the location at which the material appeared before it was removed or disabled. 3. A statement that was accused infringing party has a good faith belief that the material was removed or disabled as a result of mistake or misidentification of the material. And 4. The accused infringing party's name, address, telephone number, and, if available, email address, with a statement that such person or entity consists to the jurisdiction of the federal court and out for the judicial district in which the accused infringing party's address is located, or if that party's address is located outside the United States, for any judicial district for which Psyonix is located, and that such person or entity will accept service of process from the person who provided notification for the alleged infringement. If a counter notice is received by the designated agent, Psyonix may, in its discretion, send a copy of the counter notice to the original complaining party, informing that person that Psyonix may replace the removed material or cease disabling it in 10 business days, unless the copyright owner files an action seeking a court order against the content provider accused of committing infringement. The removed material may be replaced or access to it restored in 10 to 14 business days or more after receipt of the counter notice at Psyonix's discretion. 6. Users in the European Union. If and only if you are using or accessing the services in the European Union, the terms of this Section 20 apply. Any dispute shall be resolved under the laws of England and Wales. You agree to any claim asserted in legal proceeding by you or Psyonix in connection with these terms shall be commenced and maintained in any court of competent jurisdiction in London, England. You and Psyonix each agree to submit to the personal jurisdiction of such court. I hereby acknowledge that I have read in their entirety and understand the foregoing terms. I agree that by browsing, installing, or using the services, I am acknowledging my agreement to be bound by these terms. Sir, we're done. So what I learned today is don't break the rules, and my mouth hurts and my head hurts. So yeah.